Subscribe to the channel right now and like this video if you love stories of justice and power. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell. The collapse of a lie. The sound of a heavy wool coat zipper closing. That was the sound that ended Isabel Vance's marriage. It was 10:00 p.m. on a freezing Christmas Eve in Greenwich, Connecticut, and her husband Alexander was leaving. It wasn't for a last-minute gift, but for a supposed corporate emergency in Zurich. He kissed her on the cheek. The scent of expensive cologne and lies clung to him like a second skin. He told his family he loved them and walked out into the blizzard whipping the coast. But Isabel knew he wasn't going to Zurich. She knew he was going to see her. As the door closed with a definitive click, Isabel didn't cry. She walked to the study, poured herself a glass of brandy, and picked up the phone. The game wasn't over. It was just her turn to move. The Vance estate, situated in the exclusive hills of Greenwich, was a monument to success. Isabel, a nationally recognized architect, had designed the house herself. It was a masterpiece of glass, cedar, and limestone, and that night it glowed. An 18-foot fir tree, laden with custom silver and white ornaments, towered in the great hall. Outside, it was a perfect portrait of suburban envy. Inside, it was a stage, and the actors were exhausted. Isabel stood by the marble kitchen island. Her hands capable of drafting skyscrapers, trembled slightly as she served the Christmas dinner she had prepared. Alexander was upstairs, taking a call. He was always on a call. Alexander Vance was a man who had devoured the American dream and was still hungry. As a senior partner in a private wealth management firm, he didn't just manage money, he manifested it. He was handsome in that sharp, elegant way, with a voice that could calm a nervous marketer, but Isabel was learning, deliver a devastating lie with total sincerity. "It's just unbelievable, Isa," he had told her an hour earlier, iPhone pressed to his ear. "The whole fund? Potentially catastrophic. I understand, Mr. White. It's Christmas Eve, I know. But if the Tokyo market opens like this, I have to be there." He hung up and looked at her with a mask of deep reluctance. "Isa, I am so sorry. My partner is in Zurich. There's a compliance emergency, a black swan event. If I don't fly tonight and fix this before the Asian markets open for our biggest clients, we're talking billions. I'll be ruined. We'll be ruined." Isabel simply nodded. She played her part. She expressed dismay. She worried about the storm. She even helped him find his dark blue business passport. "And the kids?" she asked, her voice a perfect hollow echo. "Tell them Daddy is Superman and has to fly away to save the world," he said with a weak, heroic smile. "I'll be back on the 26th, I promise. I'll make it up to you." Now, he was coming downstairs in that black wool coat. The children were already asleep, their Christmas stockings hanging heavy by the fireplace, blissfully unaware. "The car is here," he said, avoiding her eyes while checking his watch. A sleek black Audi A8 sent by the firm. "Alexander," Isabel said softly. He looked up, impatient. "What is it, honey? I really have to go." She stepped toward him and smoothed the lapel of his coat. She looked into his eyes, searching for even a glimmer of the man she had married. The art history student who had won her over with theories on brutalism and a shared love for rainy afternoons. She found nothing but the cold vacancy of blue eyes. "Be safe," she whispered. He kissed her. It was dry, brief, and cold. A transaction. "Don't wait up for me," he said, grabbing his carry-on. "I love you. Tell the kids I love them." The heavy oak door closed. The sound was deafening in the silence. Isabel stood motionless for a full minute. The ghost of his Tom Ford oud wood perfume lingered in the air. She walked to the window and pulled back a silk curtain. The taillights of the black car vanished into the swirling snow. Zurich, a place of cold efficiency and bank secrets. It was the perfect lie. It was a shame, she thought, that she knew he was actually flying to Aspen, and he wasn't flying alone. She looked at the gingerbread village on the sideboard. Her son, Leo, had built a tiny doghouse for their dog, Rocco. Alexander had stepped on it earlier, crushing the candy roof, and hadn't even noticed. Isabel went back to the kitchen. She passed the perfect tree and the perfectly wrapped gifts. She picked up her phone. She didn't call her sister. She didn't call her best friend. She called the only person who mattered. The phone rang twice. "Croft here," a sharp, awake voice answered. "Elizabeth," Isabel said, her voice suddenly stripped of all fragile warmth. It was cold. It was steel. "It's Isabel Vance." There was a second of silence. "Is he gone?" "He's gone," Isabel confirmed. "He thinks he's heading to the Rockies with Beatrice Miller. He told me it was Zurich." "The man is a walking cliché," replied Elizabeth Croft, the most feared forensic divorce attorney in the country. "Then we have a green light. The process servers are on standby. The filings are in. The accounts?" Isabel entered her home office, the one Alexander always called her little hobby room. She sat at her desk, turned on the lamp, and opened her laptop. A complex spreadsheet filled the screen, a spreadsheet Alexander had no idea existed. "The accounts are ready," Isabel said. "I have the new routing numbers. We moved the trusts at 9:01 a.m., correct?" 9:01 a.m. sharp, Elizabeth corrected. "The moment the banks open. The server will be at his hotel in Aspen by 9:30. "Merry Christmas, Alexander." Isabel looked at the photo on her desk. A smiling family at a theme park. A total fiction. "Merry Christmas, Elizabeth," Isabel said. And she got to work. Question for the audience. What would you do if you discovered your partner was using your family's money to fund a double life? Leave your comment below and subscribe to see how this ends. The doubt hadn't started with a whisper. It had started with a number. Isabel Vance hadn't just designed her house. She had built it, acting as her own general contractor. She understood load-bearing walls, budgets, and the critical importance of a solid foundation. Her marriage, she believed, was built on those same principles. 6 months ago, she was reviewing the quarterly statements for her parents' trust, a significant fund Alexander had generously offered to manage personally to save on firm fees. It was a gesture that seemed touching at the time, but there was a discrepancy. A wire transfer of $75,000 to an LLC she didn't recognize, Miller Group LLC. She asked him about it. His casual brilliance was on full display. "Oh, that!" he laughed, not looking up from his iPad. "It's an angel investment, a new tech startup in the sustainable materials space. I thought it would make you happy. It's projected at a 400% return. I'm moving some of our own capital there next week." It was a perfect answer. It was specific, appealed to her interests, and promised profit. It was also a complete lie. Isabel, a woman who cross-referenced structural engineering specs, did her own research. Miller Group LLC had been registered 3 months prior in Delaware. Its business address was a virtual office in Manhattan. Its registered agent was a woman named Beatrice Miller. A quick, discreet search by a professional revealed that Beatrice Miller was a 28-year-old marketing VP at a rival firm. A few more clicks led to a private Instagram. The private investigator's report included a photo from that account. It was Beatrice, laughing on a yacht. The man steering the boat, his face turned away, but his arm around her, was wearing Alexander's distinctive Breitling watch, the one Isabel had given him for their 10th anniversary. The boat wasn't in the Hamptons. It was in the British Virgin Islands. The photo was time-stamped during a weekend he was supposedly at a leadership retreat in Chicago. The discovery didn't break Isabel. It focused her. The affair was a symptom. The $75,000 transfer was the disease. Like this video if you think Isabel did the right thing by investigating on her own. This wasn't just infidelity. It was theft. He was using her parents' money intended for her children's future, to finance a lifestyle with his mistress. She didn't cry. She didn't confront him. She documented. She went to a tech store in a different part of the city and bought a new computer and a burner phone. She opened a bank account at a different bank and made an appointment. Elizabeth Croft's office was not a warm, mahogany-paneled space for a sympathetic ear. It was a steel and glass box on the 50th floor, overlooking Manhattan. A place designed for war. "Most of my clients come here crying," Elizabeth had said, her gray eyes evaluating Isabel. "You don't. That's a good sign." "I'm not here to save my marriage, Ms. Croft," Isabel stated, sliding a USB drive across the glass table. "I'm here to end it. But I am not leaving the house I built, and he is not getting a single cent more than he has already stolen." "Stolen?" Elizabeth raised an eyebrow. "Miller Group," Isabel said. For the next 5 months, Isabel lived a double life. By day, she was the perfect wife, hosting dinners, volunteering at school, and discussing winter vacation plans with Alexander. He had pushed for something discreet, a suggestion that now made her stomach turn. By night, she and Elizabeth's team of forensic accountants dug. What they found was staggering. The $75,000 was a test. Once it went unnoticed, Alexander escalated. He had created a complex web of shell corporations: Miller Group, Apex Global, Clearwater Investments, and had been systematically siphoning funds, not just from her parents' trust, but from his own clients. He was running a small, contained Ponzi scheme. The Zurich emergency was almost certainly a lie, but the desperation was real. He was getting sloppy because the noose was tightening. He needed to move more money, and fast. The affair with Beatrice Miller was almost comically banal by comparison. It was a high-stakes payout for services rendered, disguised as romance. Beatrice, the investigators discovered, wasn't just a marketing exec. She was an expert in digital branding and, as it turned out, corporate camouflage. She was building his exit strategy. 2 weeks before Christmas, Isabel's investigator sent a new report. Plane tickets, business class, New York to Aspen, booked under Alexander Vance and Beatrice Miller. A week-long reservation at a luxury resort in Snowmass. A confirmation for a private sleigh ride dinner for 2 on Christmas Day. Isabel looked at the email. She looked at the Christmas cards on her counter, many featuring glossy photos of her perfect family. "He's taking her to the snow," she told Elizabeth over her secure line. "The arrogance," Elizabeth mused. "It's a gift. He's so busy proving he's the smartest man in the room, he's forgotten there's someone else in it." "What's the plan?" Isabel asked. "The plan," Elizabeth said, with a rare hint of satisfaction in her voice, "is that we let him go. We let him have his perfect cinematic Christmas getaway. We let him get comfortable. We let him feel like he's won. And then, on Christmas Day, while he's sipping his mimosa, we take everything." And so, Isabel played her part. She baked gingerbread. She wrapped his gifts: a cashmere sweater he'd never wear, a set of golf balls he'd never hit. She kissed him goodbye at the door. She spent the early hours of Christmas Eve without sleep, transferring documents to a new, secure cloud server. She meticulously logged every file the forensic accountants had found. The offshore account numbers in the Cayman Islands, the forged reports, the emails between Alexander and Beatrice discussing asset liquidation and a permanent move to Dubai in February. She finished at 4 a.m. The snow had stopped. The house was silent. She looked at the tree, its lights casting a warm, fake glow. She thought of Alexander, probably landing by now, breathing the crisp mountain air. A free man. She thought of Beatrice, waiting for him. Isabel went upstairs. She didn't sleep in her marital bed. She went to the guest room. She locked the door and set her new alarm for 8 a.m. For the first time in 6 months, she slept deeply. Aspen on Christmas morning was another planet. It was a place where snow wasn't an inconvenience, but a luxury. The sky was a sharp, painful blue, and the air smelled of pine and money. Alexander Vance felt reborn. He was on the balcony of his suite, a plush robe tied at his waist and a cup of coffee in his hand. Below him, the lifts were already carrying the morning's first skiers. He felt a deep, exciting sense of liberation. It's beautiful, isn't it? Beatrice stepped onto the balcony. She was 28. She was sharp and ambitious in a way he found intoxicating. She wasn't weighed down by PTA meetings and family trusts. She looked toward the future. Not bad, he smiled, kissing her hair. You smell like the hotel's expensive shampoo. Did you have any trouble escaping? She asked, leaning her head back to look at him. None, he said, a note of pride in his voice. Isabel? She swallowed the Zurich story whole. She was helping me pack. It was almost pathetic. And the kids? Sleeping. They'll be fine. A few extra gifts from Santa, and they won't even notice I'm gone. He made a dismissive wave of his hand. Don't worry about them. This is our moment. This is the beginning of our life. He truly believed it. The move to Dubai in February was the final piece. He had already transferred nearly $3 million to his new account. Another $1 million was scheduled to clear before New Year's. By the time Isabel and her family of accountants, God, they were so boring, finally noticed the discrepancies, he and Beatrice would be on a beach. Untouchable. He would leave Isabel the house and a generous alimony settlement. In his mind, he was being kind. So, what's the plan? Beatrice asked, drawing him back inside. Room service, or do we brave the slopes? Room service first, Alexander said, an arrogant smile spreading across his face. I want champagne. I want eggs Benedict. I want to celebrate. Celebrate what? It's Christmas, she laughed. It's more than Christmas, he said, picking up his phone. It's the first day of our new life, the day we finally shed the past. He ordered champagne, 2 mimosas, the Benedict for himself, and a fruit platter for Beatrice. He felt like a king. An hour later, they were laughing in the morning light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The champagne was cold, the air was warm, and life was perfect. You know, Alexander said, I should probably check my work email just to make sure the world hasn't actually ended. Zurich partners will be calling to catch up. He winked. Oh, fine, Beatrice pouted. But don't be long. 5 minutes, he promised, retrieving his laptop. He logged in. The usual junk mail, market reports, a newsletter. Then he saw it. An email from Croft and Associates, LLP. The subject line was, Notice of Judicial Process. His blood turned to ice water. He had heard the name, Elizabeth Croft, the shark in Chanel. The woman you hire when you want to incinerate your spouse, not just divorce them. Alexander, what is it? You look like you've seen a ghost. He didn't answer. His hands were shaking. He clicked the email. It was a PDF, a 150-page petition for the dissolution of marriage. He scrolled down, the legal language blurred. Then he saw the words. Requests an immediate and temporary restraining order. Alleges dissipation of marital and non-marital assets. Petition for sole custody of minor children. Sophia Vance and Leo Vance. Alexander! Beatrice's voice was sharp now. He kept scrolling. Exhibit A. Bank statements from his account in the Caymans. Exhibit B. Wire transfers to Miller Group LLC. Exhibit C. A full transcript of his emails with Beatrice detailing the plan to move to Dubai. My God, he whispered. The room was spinning. This wasn't possible. How could she? A new email popped up. This one was from his boss, the CEO of the firm. Subject: Urgent. Immediate suspension. Alexander, do not access any more company files. Your access has been revoked. An auditor from the SEC is in our office. We have a court order against you. Do not contact any clients. You are on immediate unpaid administrative leave, pending a federal investigation. He felt the mimosa rising in his throat. Alexander, talk to me, Beatrice shrieked, snatching the laptop. She read the screen. Her face, which had been radiant and tanned, turned a deathly ash gray. Do they know? Do they know about us? Do they know about Miller Group? Isabel, she knew, Alexander stammered. She knew about Zurich. She knew about Aspen. She let me go. There was a sharp, loud knock on the suite door. Alexander and Beatrice froze. Room service, Beatrice whispered, her voice trembling. The knock came again, louder. Mr. Alexander Vance? Mr. Vance, I have a delivery for you. It's from your wife. Alexander looked at the door, then at Beatrice. The king had just been checkmated. Alexander, Beatrice said, her eyes wide with panic. What have you done? What have I done? He yelled. What have we done? You were in on this. Don't you dare pin this on me. The knock came again, final. Mr. Vance, by order of the court, you are legally served. And Mr. Vance, the state police are on their way up. You are not to leave this hotel. Alexander sank into the expensive suede sofa. His life, so carefully constructed, had just been demolished. And the architect of his destruction was his quiet, unassuming wife, whom he had assumed was at home, baking cookies. Comment your thoughts below. Do you think Alexander deserves this ending? Like and subscribe. While Alexander Vance was receiving his Christmas gift in Aspen, Isabel Vance was executing the second phase of her plan. At 9:01 a.m., she was on a secure video call with Elizabeth Croft and a bank representative. Mrs. Vance, the banker said, we are ready. With your authorization, we will execute the wire transfers according to the court order, moving the liquid assets from the joint accounts and the children's trusts into the new protected escrow accounts. Proceed, please, Isabel said, her voice calm. And the family trust? Elizabeth asked. The motion for an emergency injunction to freeze the Vance family trust, pending an investigation into Mr. Vance's fraudulent management, has been granted. Alexander Vance no longer has signing authority over any of his clients' funds. Effective now. Isabel felt no triumph, just a silent, clean relief. The first tumor had been excised. At 10:00 a.m., a large, unmarked van pulled into her driveway. Two men in windbreakers stepped out. They weren't movers. They were digital locksmiths. In 20 minutes, they had changed the codes to the garage, the doors, and the home's smart security system. The access codes on Alexander's phone and in his car were now void. At 10:30 a.m., Isabel went to the children's rooms. Sophia and Leo were awake, euphoric from the post-Santa sugar rush, digging through their stockings. "Mom, look! Santa brought me the new Lego set," Leo yelled. "He ate the cookies," Sophia added, pointing to the empty plate. Isabel smiled, a genuine smile this time. "He did. Now, how would you two like another gift?" "Yes, go pack your bags for an overnight stay. We're going to Aunt Sarah's for a few days. She's going to make her famous pancake breakfast." This was met with shrieks of joy. Her sister Sarah lived 3 towns away, and her house was fun, which meant fewer rules and more sugary cereal. While the kids frantically packed their toys, Isabel entered her own room. She packed a suitcase for herself and 2 for the kids. She took her passport, the kids' passports, and the hard drive backups from her office. She didn't pack a single item for Alexander. She left his closet, with its rows of tailored suits and Italian shoes, intact. She left his toiletries on the marble vanity. She left their wedding photo on the nightstand. She wanted him to see it. At 11:30 a.m., she loaded the kids and Rocco into her Range Rover. As she pulled down the driveway, another vehicle was entering. It was a white sedan with a logo on the side, Sotheby's International Realty. A woman in an elegant red coat stepped out. It was Rebecca Vale, the top real estate agent in Fairfield County, and an old acquaintance of Isabel's. "Isabel," Rebecca said, her expression a mix of business and sympathy. "The timing is aggressive, but I love it. The court order is already in your inbox, Rebecca," Isabel said through the open window, the children happily distracted by their iPads. "I want it staged, I want it listed, and I want it sold, fast." "Fast? Isabel, it's Christmas Day. The market is dead until February." "Not for this house," Isabel replied. "You know the specs. You know what it's worth. The court has approved an emergency sale to prevent the dissipation of marital assets, specifically to stop my husband from using the equity to pay his legal fees." Rebecca's eyes went wide. "He doesn't know. He's finding out right now," Isabel said. Rebecca smiled. This was the kind of legendary listing agents dreamed of. "I'll list it as the architect's personal masterpiece. We can get a premium." "List it however you want, Rebecca," Isabel said, shifting into gear. "Just sell it." By 2:00 p.m., a coming soon sign was being hammered into the lawn. By 3:15 p.m., a staging crew was swarming the house, removing all personal photos, the kids' drawings from the fridge, the lived-in clutter. They were neutralizing it, turning it from a home into a product. Isabel arrived at her sister's house to the smell of cinnamon and coffee. Sarah opened the door and simply looked at her. Then she pulled her into a fierce embrace. "Is it done?" Sarah whispered. "It's begun," Isabel said, feeling the first crack in her armor. "Good. Now come in. The kids are already building the Lego. I have mimosas, and you're going to tell me everything, starting with the look on that jerk's face when he finds out." "I don't know," Isabel said, "but I have a feeling I'll be getting a call soon." She was right. At 4:15 p.m., her new burner phone, the one only Elizabeth and Sarah had, vibrated. The caller ID was a Colorado area code. She let it ring and ring. Then, a voicemail notification. She let it ring again. Another call. Another voicemail. And again. The 4th time, she answered. She pressed the record button, just as Elizabeth had instructed. "Isabel? Isabel! What the hell is going on?" His voice was a raw, panicked roar, the sound of a god discovering he was mortal. Isabel held the phone away from her ear. "Isabel, are you there? What is this? What have you done? My accounts are frozen. My boss called me. There are guards here. It's Isabel, she said, her voice impossibly cold. What? My name? It's Isabel. There was a stunned silence. You did this. This is about the money. You're destroying our lives. You're destroying the family. Why? Because of a mistake. A mistake, Alexander? Isabel asked. She was at her sister's kitchen window, watching her children build a snowman in the backyard. They looked happy. Was it a mistake when you transferred $75,000 from my parents' trust? Or was it the $2 million you siphoned to Apex Global, which is just another one of your girlfriend's shell companies? The line went dead silent. He was breathing hard. How? He stammered. How did you do it? You're a wealth manager, Alexander, but you're not a very good criminal. You got sloppy. You underestimated me. You thought I was just the wife, the one who designs houses and plans parties. You forgot that I'm the one who builds things. And yours? She said. It was trash. Isabel, please. His voice shifted. It was the voice of the smooth negotiator now. Listen to me. You don't know what you're doing. You're playing with fire. There are dangerous people involved. You need to stop this. We can fix it. I can fix it. No, Alexander, she said. You can't. I've already spoken with the SEC and the district attorney. They are very, very interested in your Black Swan event in Zurich. They're especially interested in your dangerous people. He was speechless. He was, for the first time in his life, out of lies. Where are my kids? He finally growled. They are safe. They are with me. You won't see them. You can't do that. You can't take my kids from me. I'm not taking them from you, Isabel said. I'm protecting them. From you. A judge has already agreed. You can read all about it in the papers. The man in your hotel lobby has a copy for you. You bitch, he whispered. All the charm was gone, replaced by pure, ugly hate. Merry Christmas, Alexander, Isabel said. She hung up. She looked at her sister, who was holding a fresh mimosa. He called, Isabel said. And? Sarah asked. He's not happy. The two sisters looked at each other, and for the first time in a long time, they both began to laugh. Question for the audience. Do you think Isabel was too cruel, or did Alexander's betrayal justify this level of cleaning? Tell us what you think in the comments. The fall of Alexander Vance was not a slow-motion stumble. It was a 90-story free fall onto concrete. The state police officers were polite but firm. He wasn't under arrest. Yet. But a court order had frozen all of his known assets. He was, in effect, a prisoner in a $5,000 a night hotel suite he could no longer afford. The hotel, upon learning from the officers that the credit card on file was part of a federal investigation, suddenly became much less accommodating. He and Beatrice were informed they had 1 hour to vacate the premises. The scene in the suite was a whirlwind of ugly panic. "You have to get us out of this!" Beatrice screamed, throwing clothes into her suitcase. "My name is on those documents. I could go to jail." "Shut up! Shut up and let me think!" Alexander roared, pacing the room. He had tried to call his lawyer, his corporate lawyer, who had refused even to speak to him, citing a catastrophic conflict of interest. He tried calling his friends. He got voicemail. Word had already traveled. A man at the top of the world has 1,000 friends. A man suspended by the SEC has none. "My passport!" Beatrice suddenly shrieked. "My passport is in the hotel safe." "So, go get it," Alexander snapped. "I can't. They won't give it to me. They said the contents of the safe are being held until the bill is settled." Alexander stared at her. What? My passport, my cash, everything is in there. Alexander, I'm trapped! The reality hit her. Isabel had anticipated his every move. She knew he would take Beatrice. She knew he would put things in her name. She had trapped them both in a golden cage, and then, just now, thrown away the key. They were escorted out by hotel security, walking past the very people they had toasted with champagne the night before. The walk of shame through the luxury lobby, carrying their own suitcases because the bellhops had been warned not to help, was a humiliation Alexander would never forget. He was a man who lived by image, and his image was being shredded. He got a cab to the airport. He had to pay for it, with the last $300 in cash he had in his wallet. His emergency cash. He booked 2 one-way tickets to New York with his only remaining line of credit, an American Express card that Isabel had apparently, and fortunately, forgotten. Or so he thought. The flight was a 3-hour silent nightmare. Beatrice sat beside him, her face a mask of smeared mascara and terror. She was no longer his sophisticated, ambitious partner. She was a burden, a 28-year-old girl who had joined his sinking ship. "What are we going to do?" she whispered when they landed at JFK. "We?" Alexander sneered, the first real wave of his old arrogance returning. "There is no we. You're on your own. My wife named you personally in the filing. You are the one who registered the LLCs. You are the one who committed the bank fraud. You." Beatrice's face crumpled. But you told me to do it. You said it was all legal. You said it was just creative accounting." "And you believed me?" Alexander mocked. "Then you're stupider than I thought." He grabbed his carry-on and walked off the plane, leaving her at the gate. He took a taxi home to Greenwich. The $80 fare nearly maxed out his Amex. When the cab pulled up, he saw it. The Sotheby's sign. It wasn't coming soon. It was for sale. "No," he whispered. "No, she wouldn't. She can't." He ran up the driveway, key in hand. He shoved it into the lock. It wouldn't turn. "What the hell?" He tried again. Nothing. He threw his shoulder against the heavy oak. It didn't budge. He rang the doorbell. A frantic, furious pounding. "Isabel, open this door! Open this damn door! Right now!" No one answered. The house was dark. He went to the garage and punched in the code. Access denied. He was locked out. Of his own house. He pulled out his phone, fingers numb with cold. He was about to call Isabel again when a new email appeared. American Express. Subject: an update to your account. Dear Mr. Vance, we are writing to inform you that your card has been reported as part of a pending legal action. Your charging privileges have been suspended. She hadn't forgotten. She had waited. She had let him use it to get home, this one last time, only to pull the rug from under his feet. It was a power move. A cruel, brilliant, Isabel move. He was standing in his own front yard. No key, no car, no money. His phone was at 14% battery. It was 11 o'clock p.m. on Christmas Day. It was below zero, and the wind was picking up. A car pulled into the neighbor's driveway. It was Dr. Miller from across the street. He got out, saw Alexander, and waved. "Alexander, back from Zurich already. Merry Christmas." Alexander just stared. Dr. Miller's smile faded. He looked at the for sale sign, then at Alexander's small suitcase, then at Alexander's thunderous, lost expression. "Oh," the doctor said, sudden understanding dawning. "Well then, good night." He hurried inside. Alexander Vance, the king of Greenwich, was a neighbor to be avoided. In that moment, he felt a hate so pure, so potent, it nearly choked him. He was going to destroy her. He didn't know how, but he would. He started walking. It was 3 miles to the nearest motel that might, just might, take a debit card he wasn't sure worked. The long, cold walk of a man who had everything and in 24 hours had lost it all. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in legal and financial strangulation, all orchestrated by Elizabeth Croft. But the strategy, the blueprint for Alexander's downfall, was all Isabel's. Alexander had managed to secure a low-rent criminal defense attorney, a man named Arthur Gill, who had to be paid with a high-interest loan secured against Alexander's parents' retirement home. Jill had filed an emergency motion to unfreeze Alexander's assets and grant him access to the marital home and his children. They all met in a sterile, beige courtroom on January 8th. Alexander, thinner and in an ill-fitting suit he'd had to buy at a department store, sat at one table, looking haggard. Isabel, in a charcoal gray power suit, her hair in a severe, elegant bun, sat at the other. She looked like she was there to give a keynote lecture, not dismantle a life. "Your Honor," Jill began, his voice a monotone drone. "My client has been egregiously wronged. He has been locked out of his home, his bank accounts frozen, and most cruel of all, barred from seeing his children, all based on the hysterical, unfounded claims of a vengeful wife." "Objection," Elizabeth Croft said. "Counsel's characterization of hysterical is misogynistic, and his claim of unfounded is a provable lie." "Sustained," the judge sighed, looking over his glasses. "Get to the point, Mr. Gill." "The point, Your Honor," Jill continued, "is that Mrs. Vance has no right to sell the marital home. It is a joint asset. She is attempting to liquidate it out of spite." "Is that so, Ms. Croft?" the judge asked, turning. Elizabeth Croft stood. She held a single, bound document. "Your Honor," she began, her voice crisp, "we are not attempting to sell the house. We are selling the house. The closing is scheduled for this Friday." "What?" Alexander half rose from his chair. "You can't." "Sit down, Mr. Vance," the judge snapped. "This is an outrage," Jill sputtered. "She cannot sell the house without my client's signature." "She can," Elizabeth said, dropping her voice, "when she is the only name on the title." The courtroom went silent. Alexander turned and stared, mouth agape. "What? What is she talking about?" he whispered to Jill. "Your Honor," Elizabeth continued, "if you look at Exhibit A, the original deed to the property, the land was not purchased by Mr. and Mrs. Vance. The land was purchased in 2012 by Vance Designs LLC, Mrs. Vance's personal architectural firm, funded with premarital capital. Mr. Vance's name was never, at any point, on the title. He has been, for the last 10 years, living in her house." Alexander's face went white. Was it true? He vaguely remembered her saying it was cleaner for business taxes if she bought the land through her firm. He'd been busy with a merger at the time and just gave her the nod. "Whatever you think is best, honey." He never thought to check. He never thought it mattered. "Furthermore, Your Honor," Croft wasn't finished. "As for the marital assets Mr. Gill claims his client is entitled to, Exhibit B." She handed a new file to the bailiff. "This is a forensic audit, completed in the last 6 months. It details, with receipts, Mr. Vance's systematic embezzlement from the Vance Family Trust, his children's education funds, and at least 3 of his high-net-worth clients. Clients who, I might add, are preparing their own civil suits." She paused, letting the weight of the words settle. "The total amount stolen, Your Honor, amounts to $4.8 million. The total value, generously estimated, of Mr. Vance's share of the remaining marital assets. His suits, his golf clubs, his half of the checking account, amounts to about $280,000. She turned for the first time to look directly at Alexander. My client, Mrs. Vance, in an act of profound generosity, has agreed not to claim her half of his assets. Instead, she will credit that $280,000 against the $8 million he stole from her and her family. Which means, Your Honor, Mr. Vance does not, in fact, have any assets. He has a debt, a $4 million debt to his wife, which we will not be collecting at this time, as we feel the district attorney will soon have a more pressing claim on his time. Jill was speechless. Alexander was visibly shaking. This, Elizabeth Croft concluded. It's the bill, and as they say, it has to be paid. As for the children, she continued, her voice softening almost imperceptibly, Mrs. Vance has applied for, and been granted, an emergency order of protection on their behalf. Mr. Vance has been shown to be a flight risk, has actively conspired to permanently leave the country, and is the subject of an active federal investigation. His request for visitation is denied. The judge looked at the files. He looked at Alexander's lawyer, who was shuffling his papers, clearly blindsided by the volume of evidence his own client had lied to him about. Motion to unfreeze assets is denied, the judge said, rapping his gavel. Motion for home access is denied, as it is not his home. Motion for visitation is denied. Ms. Croft, your client's petition for an emergency restraining order and the sale of the sole title is granted. We will reconvene after the criminal proceedings. He struck the gavel again. Next case. Isabel stood, smoothed her skirt, picked up her briefcase, and turned. She didn't look at him. She didn't smile. She didn't register his presence. She was an architect who had just inspected a condemned building. She turned, her heels clicking on the floor, and walked out of the courtroom. Alexander was left alone at the table, a man with nothing but a crushing debt and a very, very cheap lawyer. The disaster wasn't just for Alexander. It was a crater, and Beatrice Miller was at the epicenter. After being abandoned at JFK, Beatrice went into hiding. She went to her modern apartment in Soho, only to find the locks had been changed. The apartment, it turned out, was leased by Miller Group LLC, and since all assets of that corporation were frozen, the landlord had legally locked her out. She was served her own set of papers at her office, where she was fired immediately. She was also now the subject of a federal investigation. She and Alexander had one final pathetic meeting in the lobby of a budget hotel near the airport, the only place they could see each other without being spotted. You have to fix this, Alexander, she pleaded in a sibilant whisper. You have to tell them I had no idea. You have to tell them I was just your assistant. Alexander looked at her with dead eyes. The charm, the wit, the high-flying confidence, all gone. Burnt out. My assistant, he said hoarsely. You were my partner. You were the one who found the offshore banks. You were the one who designed the Miller Group branding. You were the one who told me Isabel was a simple-minded trophy wife who would never catch on. She stammered. I was in love with you. You were in love with the money, he spat back. We both were, and we lost. So what now? She asked, tears in her eyes. Now? Alexander let out a dark, hollow laugh. Now, it's every man for himself. My lawyer, Jill, is a fool, but he said one smart thing. He said the feds don't have a case unless they can prove intent. They need someone to testify. Beatrice's eyes went wide with horror. testify? The first one to talk, the first one to take a deal is the one who walks, Alexander said, leaning in. The other one is the one who carries the fall, the mastermind. You wouldn't, she gasped. Alexander, you wouldn't. He stood up. He didn't have $1 to his name, but he looked at her with all the disdain of the millionaire he used to be. Merry Christmas, Beatrice, he said, and walked away, leaving her to realize that he was already on his way to his lawyer's office to do precisely that. Beatrice Miller, the ambitious girl who wanted to have it all, was about to become the star witness against Alexander Vance in exchange for a plea deal, one that would still see her serve 18 months in a minimum security prison, but would spare her the 10 to 15-year sentence Alexander was facing for bank fraud and embezzlement. She had flown too close to the sun, and Alexander, in a final act of selfish survival, had ripped off her wings to save himself. The open house for the Vance estate was the talk of the town. Rebecca Vale didn't market it as a divorce sale, but as an opportunity, an architect's private masterpiece offered for immediate sale. The house was flawless. The staging team had replaced Isabel's warm, personal furniture with cold, modern, aspirational pieces. It looked like a magazine cover. It looked like a place where no one had ever lived. On the day of the sale, Isabel didn't sit in her lawyer's office. She sat in her new temporary home, a sleek rented penthouse overlooking Central Park. She had her kids, her dog, and her sister. She was in front of her laptop. The house, due to the high-profile nature of the case, which had leaked to Alexander's horror, was being sold in a sealed bid auction to pre-qualified buyers. It's time, Sarah said, pouring 2 glasses of wine, even though it was only 11 o'clock a.m. It's time, Isabel agreed. Her phone vibrated. It was Rebecca Vale. Isabel, are you sitting down? I am. We have the offers. We had 4. All strong. The neighbors from across the street, a tech billionaire, a local hospital executive, and one from a holding company I've never heard of, North Star Properties, LLC. Isabel smiled. Isabel, you're not going to believe this. The billionaire offered $8.5 million. The hospital exec offered $8.2. But this offer from North Star, they offered $9 million. All cash, no inspection, 10-day close. It is the cleanest, strongest offer I've ever seen in my life. It's a miracle. It's not a miracle, Rebecca, Isabel said, taking a sip of her wine. It's a plan. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Isabel, North Star Properties, LLC. That's not you, is it? I designed it, Isabel said, her voice light. I built it. I'm not letting a stranger have it. The bank was happy to finance the buyback, considering the $4.5 million in restitution I'm receiving from the government once they seize Alexander's other offshore accounts. Rebecca was speechless. So please, accept the offer, Rebecca, Isabel continued. I'll pay your full commission, of course. Isabel Vance had just sold her own house to herself. Why? Because Alexander, in his arrogance, had leveraged the house's future value in his Ponzi scheme. He had taken out a secret, fraudulent $2 million home equity line of credit against her house by forging her signature. By selling the house, she was clearing the fraudulent liens. By buying it back in an arm's-length all-cash transaction through her new, pristine LLC, she was washing the title clean. She was cutting the final financial tie to Alexander Vance. Forever. He hadn't just lost the house. He had lost the debt associated with it, which was now his sole criminal liability. It was the final move. Brilliant. The architect's finishing touch. She closed her laptop. Her kids came running into the room, holding a drawing. "Mom, look! It's our new house," Sophia said, holding up a crayon drawing of a skyscraper. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," Isabel said, pulling her children into a hug. "But we aren't going to live there?" Leo asked, confused. "No," Isabel said, a real smile spreading across her face. "We're going home." She had left. Yes, she had left the lies, the betrayal, and the empty shell of her marriage. But she had done it by circling the block, securing her perimeter, and returning to her fortress. Not as a victim, but as the victor. Alexander had tried to burn her house down, not realizing she was the one with the blueprint, the title, and the matches. Isabel Vance didn't just survive. She dismantled. She used his own arrogance, his own greed, and his own undervaluing of her as the very tools of his destruction. She proved that the perfect wife isn't the one who just bakes cookies. She's the one who's been reading the bank statements all along. This wasn't a story of revenge. It was a story of justice, the story of a foundation that held firm even when the house on top of it was on fire. What did you think of Isabel's final move? Was it pure genius, or was it colder than Christmas in Aspen? Tell us what you think in the comments below. If this story of strength and survival moved you, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to remember their own power. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories about when the underdogs finally get their turn to play.